afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Indie Business Radio for Monday, December 21st, 2009. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and you have arrived at the one place where we empower you to enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way. Today's show is sponsored by Social Media Training for Small Business Owners. That's right. I am coming to Atlanta, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and now we have added Houston to the tour in 2010 in the first quarter, specifically to work with small and independent business owners with hands-on intensive social media training to help you get the results you need next year to be successful. A lot of talk about social media these days. My approach is very different, as you'll find out if you visit themediaisyou.com for more information and details. So it's really great to be here today. Yesterday was my birthday. Today is the last show of the year for me, and I'm just so excited to be able to share my final guest of the year with you. Her name is Nancy D. Solomon, and she is the author of Impact, What Every Woman Needs to Know to Go from Invisible to Invincible. Nancy Solomon is an expert in the field of human potential and personal growth. She is acclaimed for her ability to help people achieve great personal and professional success by discovering who they are and how that impacts what they do in their lives. She is a great person to know if you are looking to step up your game for 2010, and I'm excited to have her on today's show. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Merry holidays.
Yes, happy holidays, everyone. If you're listening to Indie Business Radio at our indiebusinessradio.com website, note that you can click on the chat link and you can join us live in the chat room using Twitter or Facebook, whichever one you prefer. So, Nancy, we are going to be talking today about going from invisible to invincible. So let me first say, right, that we don't have to be invisible to use the tips that we're going to be using today, right? We can always step up our game no matter where we are.
Absolutely. And what I have found, Donna Maria, is that everybody, men, women, children, are invisible in some place in their lives. So while we may be invincible in our business, maybe we're invisible around our weight. Or maybe we're invisible around money. All right? So everybody's got a place where they can apply these principles.
Okay, so you're saying that it's a holistic approach, right? But you're saying that there are particular pockets of everyone's lives where they really need this information as opposed to some areas where they may be naturally strong.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
So let's all take a look at that. Everyone who's listening, think about your life. Is this a good way to approach it, Nancy? So, because we could be all over the place with a show with as much information as you have to share. We can be real specific if everyone can think of one thing that they really feel they need to apply some of these principles to next year.
And where I would suggest our listeners focus right now for the next minute or two is, where are you not living your potential? Where are you thinking to yourself, I know that I could be doing this, or I know I, quote, should be doing that, or if I would just let go of this, then this other thing would happen. And those are sure signs of invisibility.
So Nancy, what if the list is extremely long? What do we do? What if the list is too long, or however long it is for us, there's a list, whether it's 13 things or 3 things, it's overwhelming. What do we do to get started?
The one that has the highest amount of juice for you, the one that bothers you the most, the one that you most don't want to handle, right? Because we tend to go for what's easy first. And so, I've met people who have wanted to write a book, wanted to get married, and wanted to get the laundry done, and the laundry was the one where they were invisible. And you would think, oh, no, it must be something else. And the only person who knows that is the person whose issue it is. So you can't look at somebody else and go, you could be handling this first.
So what do you mean when you say impact? What exactly does that mean?
Well, generally it's our ability to influence and make a difference, a personally meaningful difference in our lives and the lives of those around us. And this whole subject came up when I realized that we use the word influence, and influence is sort of you'll excuse the expression, but it's more of a male term. And I want to just get this out of the way. My conversation is not about excluding men. It's about including women in this particular context. I'm going to make some generalizations about men and women, and that's all they are. They're generalizations. So if they don't apply to you, they don't apply to you. All right? That's very important because within us all, we all have male and female energy. Right? And some of us skew to the female and some of us skew to the male. All of that said, when we talk about influence, we hear often in our brains the ability to make somebody do something they don't want to do. Like influence that person in that meeting or convince somebody to do something. And it's where we get hung up in sales too, whether it's in our own small business or when we're being sold to. And so when I think about impact, I think about us being able to be on purpose, to use our gifts and talents, to use all the cylinders that we were born with to make a personally meaningful difference in our lives, the lives of those around us, and in the world. So that on our expiration date, on the day that we leave this planet and go to the next place, we leave something behind of meaning. We leave something behind of meaning. And so I think of impact not as the finger, but as the fingerprint. When you leave a meeting with a client, how are they going to have felt having been with you? That is your impact. How are they going to experience the tools perhaps that you've left with them, or the guidance that you've left with them, or the product that you've left them? How are they going to feel about themselves and their business as a result of you having been in their lives? And what we know is that the more positively we impact people, the more they want to do business with us. Why? Because they feel good around us.
So your impact defined by, I'm going to try and synthesize that, your impact is defined by what fingerprint you leave with another person after they've had an encounter with you.
That would be correct.
Okay, so
and
I know
we often, as women, leave ourselves out of that equation. So it's also how do we impact our own lives? And what that would look like is if we commit to making 10 phone calls a day, and we don't do that because the laundry became too important, or someone else needed something and sort of intervened in our own to-do list, then we feel bad about ourselves. So we're negatively impacting ourselves. And I think the one thing most people do, most women especially do, is undermine or minimize the amount of impact they have in the world.
So we really have to divide this up into two sections, right? We have to, at least two, and I know in an hour show we can only do a high-level overview, but we have to look at the impact not just that we have outwardly, but inwardly. Do we start with the inward impact and then flow from there, Nancy?
Absolutely. That's a great observation, and I love the way you broke that down. And it is overwhelming sometimes to see how much information there is and how much we can give people to have little digestible pieces, right? So I'd like everybody to do a little visualization. This is going to take under 20 seconds. Right? Picture yourself by a body of water. It could be a pond, a stream, the ocean, whatever is your particularly favorite body of water, your bathtub. Picture yourself throwing a rock into that body of water. And you'll notice that these concentric circles ripple out from the center of this, from where this rock penetrated the water, right? That is our life. And I call that we are the rock in our own pond. Now, the first circle out is the rock is us. It's our spiritual selves. The first circle out is our emotional selves. Then becomes our mental selves, our physical selves. Then it's probably our family and the place where we live and the place where we work and our community and so on and so forth until we get out into the universe. And I love this model. It's a total model of accountability because it says, if it happens out there in your world, it's because you generated it. So it's a model of accountability. All right? Now, I say this because the second circle happens because of the first circle, right? Mm-hmm. And the fifth circle happens because of the fourth circle and the third circle and then the second and the first.
So there's like a domino or ripple effect.
Exactly, the ripple effect. So what that implies is that the impact that you have on yourself is the most critical. Because everything comes out of that. Everything is generated out of that. So when people say to me, well, I don't have much impact at work, or I don't have much impact in this kind of meeting, what I say is let's trace that back to who you are and how you're impacting what it is that you're doing. Does that make sense, Donna Maria?
I think it absolutely makes sense. And here's my next question then in light of that. And I love how you phrased it. I think deep down inside, all of us, we kind of know that somewhere, but Nancy, it's hard. Okay, so blah, 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 it's hard, yada, yada, get over it, girlfriend. But what sorts of things can we do if it's been so hard for so many years that we haven't been able to overcome it? Where do we start with the knowledge that you just described and make it actually turn into something profitable for us?
Now. That's my one-word answer now. I bet you'd like me to elaborate.
No,
now in this moment.
Do elaborate. Okay.
You know, I teach this because I had to learn it. And when I learned it, I said, well, this is invaluable. Because all of a sudden, as this, you know, we say, well, she thinks she's the center of her own universe. Well, it's because we are. All right? And in my world, we generate everything, which for us control freaks is a relief, because we know that if it happened, if something happened in a meeting, I'll give you a perfect example. I had an appointment this morning with a client of mine, and I Skyped and said, where are you? And she said, I'm busy. And I said, but we had a 9 o'clock. And she said, I'm off for the rest of the day. And I thought, she's rendering me invisible. It didn't acknowledge the fact that we had an appointment, and I know all small business owners, you know what, all people in any kind of business experience this all the time, right? And so I thought, gosh, that's really strange. Why would she do that? She's a great client. We love working with each other. And come to think of it, that's happened before with her. That's happened before. So when I sat down and in about 30 seconds figured out, how am I being with her in such a way that it's okay for her to just blow me off like that? I mean, we had an appointment. It was on the calendar. You can't make an appointment, no problem. You just, give an email or a phone call is even more polite and say, sorry, something came up, I can't make it. And then I realized that in our last several conversations, we started getting familiar, which is something that women tend to do in all relationships. And so I think that she stopped taking me as seriously. So even though I posted to her an agenda of what I wanted to talk to in that 7 minutes, some part of her, I'm giving off some message that we're friends now, and it's okay for friends not to keep appointments as opposed to business. And I think that's a great example of exactly what it is that I'm talking about. That I changed my relationship with her inside of me, and outwardly that gave her permission to be less than professional. And I see this happen every day in my practice. Has that ever happened to you?
It actually has. It actually has. It often happens, Nancy, when I have a series of coaching or training classes that are set up via email or via phone. And everybody's all excited and ready to go at the very beginning. And inevitably, one or two sort of drop off, and then in the way that you just described. And it's kind of interesting because it happened recently, and it actually happened with the person I'm thinking of. It happened a long time ago, Nancy, about 12 months ago. And just a few weeks ago, I got an email that said, I'm ready now. And I wrote back and I said, what exactly does that mean? And I never got a response. So, and I think, and believe me, I've, guilty as charged. I mean, there are things in my life where I feel like I'm invisible as well, and I hate that. So I love your book because it really does provide what I think, Nancy, are tips that are specifically geared toward anyone, but really towards women, because we seem to be especially vulnerable in this area, don't you think?
I do, and may I share with you why?
Yes.
Thank you. We are taught, and again I'm generalizing, we are taught to be relational. We are taught to be social before we are anything else. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's why women are always maintaining relationships. And this shows up at work because if you'll notice, most men are not called to be accountable for the relationships at work and their reviews. Consistently, I get coaching clients come in and say, well, they say that I need to manage up better, manage my relationships up. And I'm thinking to myself, without being, sexist in any way, gosh, they don't ask guys to manage the relationships, And so, getting back to your point, what happens is we have a tendency to look out for everybody else's best interests rather than our own. We tend to, are you doing okay? Women like to do everything in a herd. We don't even like to go to the restroom by ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're at a restaurant and everybody's at a table, and you go, I need to go to the restroom. Anybody want to come? Guys don't do that, right? So we get right. We translate that into a business environment, and we're looking to see how everybody's doing. And it tends to make us take ourselves a little less seriously, and for others to take us a little less seriously as well. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, it does. We're talking today with Nancy D. Solomon, author of Impact, What Every Woman Needs to Know to Go from Invisible to Invincible. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Nancy about her one-word answer in detail. We're going to be talking about what it means to do it now. We're going to come right back in just a minute with Nancy D. Solomon. This is Donna Maria, Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. I'm Donna Maria. We are talking this afternoon with Nancy D. Solomon, author of Impact, What Every Woman Needs to Know to Go from Invisible to Invincible. Nancy, before we took our break, you said the word now. Tell me what you mean by that.
It's a powerful word, isn't it? Doesn't it feel like the word yes inside of our body? Like when I say yes. Now means it really doesn't make a difference what happened before this moment. Oh, look, we're in a new moment. New moment, new moment. It's about being present. And I don't want to undervalue in any way what it's like to go back into our history and figure out why we did what we do. I think that's critical. And certainly as coaches and as a therapist, that's a significant part of my life is spent doing that. But there's nothing more powerful than saying to yourself, how do I want to be now? What do I want to do now? That was yesterday. Wait, that was 5 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago we said the word now. It's a new moment. Who are you now as a result of listening to this show, taking this in, noticing where the sparks are? Gee, I don't want that to be relevant to me, but it is. Or, gee, I do that, and taking it from this moment forth.
Nancy, do you think that sometimes, touching upon the statement you just made about the past, do you think that sometimes we allow the past to sabotage what we can do to start now? In other words, as you said, we don't want to undermine the past experience because there certainly probably are consequences that you're experiencing now. So right. Do you think, though, that sometimes we allow those to get in the way when they really don't have to?
Yes.
So
yes. It's an excuse. Okay, so let me just break it down real simple. And this is, of course, my opinion, and I'm sure that if we, queried 400 people, there'd be 400 opinions. But what I've observed is there's the kind of work you need to do historically about yourself, your family of origin, et cetera, that's critical to your success. But then what happens is when we get to now, sometimes we use that history as an excuse not to go forward. And I know I've certainly been guilty of it. When I did this before, it didn't work. Well, it's a new moment, and you're a new you. And you're not the you that made this mistake or had that failure. That failure, by the way, is in quotes because I don't believe in failures. Years ago. That's not who you are now. And here's what's really interesting. I'm known for these daily quotes, these inspiring quotes called Solomonisms. And if you've got something to write with nearby, grab a pen. This one goes like this. Perhaps you're uncomfortable, not because your vision is too big, but because you're standing in a place too small. I'm going to say that again. Perhaps you're uncomfortable, not because your vision is too big, but because you're standing in a place too small.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I did just write that down. Let's start with that then. This is what I thought you were going to say, so I want you to tell me the difference. I thought you were going to say perhaps you're uncomfortable not because your vision is too big, but because your vision is too small. What's the difference between that and perhaps you're uncomfortable not because your vision is too big, but because you're standing in a place that's too small?
Well, because we're saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing. Because
are we really, though?
Yes, we're saying the exact same thing. I'm saying, people say to me, gosh, I want to go and I want to make $800,000 a year. I'm making this up, right? And I'll say, well, okay, let's make a plan for that.
Right.
And they go, oh, I could never do that. I could never do it. I don't even, I only made $80,000 in the last 2 years combined. How can I do that? And what I discover when we work through it is you can't have a vision to make $800,000 unless you have the ability to do it too. You're not going to get a vision. The universe isn't going to serve you up a thought to turn into a franchise or to write 7 books or whatever it is for you. Maybe to stay home with your children and only work 20 hours a week. Well, work outside the home, that is, right? Unless you also have the ability to reach it. And what I find is people think too small. It's a scarcity mentality. I'd be so happy if I could only make $50,000 a year. Well, Mary Sue, how much do you really want to make? Don't tell anybody, but I want to make $200,000. Well, Mary Sue, why are we talking about 50 then? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so the discomfort comes from knowing I'm capable of that, but I'm only living in this little space.
Okay, so
that's where the discomfort comes from.
So you have to be realistic.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah, because you're probably not going to start making that tomorrow.
No,
right?
and I know that was such an obvious statement. But here's where I'm going with it. You have to be realistic. So in that case, do you find that some people struggle with the notion that, I want to make $800,000. However, my reality and what I think is truly possible, really with some analysis, what's possible is $50,000 or $500,000, let's say. So.
Right.
So is a part of why people sell themselves short because they feel as though, I'm trying to decide the best way to say this, they feel as though the $800,000 is what they'd like, the $500,000 is what they could possibly get, but they don't even strive to get that because they can't put themselves into that reality type context.
Yes, and if you don't try, you can say in the back of your mind, had I tried, maybe I would have succeeded.
So
if
maybe
you try and don't make it, then you're faced with that reality.
Okay, so not setting the goal in the first place keeps you safe from not meeting it.
That's correct. So that's in that sense, sabotage isn't my favorite word, but it's a really great descriptor. In that sense, we do sabotage ourselves. Here's what I know to be true. I have never, ever met one single person who didn't have a hope or a dream or an aspiration of some sort to change the world, if only their own world.
Right, okay.
So for some people, it could be, I want to finish that scrapbook next year. It's not the size. I'm using money as a sort of a barometer, and that's probably not fair. Because for some people, they want to figure out, how do I make life easy and relaxed and have a good, healthy business working only with people I really like? And in that respect, they'd have a lot of impact. How do we render ourselves invisible? By not giving ourselves permission to even go for it to begin with.
Okay, so Nancy, let's use me as an example, if you don't mind, for the next couple of minutes. I want to ask you if it makes sense to do it this way, because I think people can substitute what I would say for whatever their issue is. Okay, I love to knit. okay? And I have 20 years of accumulated knitting around here. And very few finished projects. I have every single size knitting needle in bamboo wood as well as whatever it is, I think colored stainless steel or something. I have circular needles.
You're talking to a knitter, by the way.
What, you are?
Yeah, I'm a knitter, too. Keep going.
Good. Okay, so I have circular needles. I have long needles. I have all the little hooks and doodads. I have a million pattern books. And I have about 10 unfinished sweaters and the yarn to make about 50 more. Okay, so and let me tell you how this fits in. Okay, it's totally unrelated to my business on the surface, but every now and then I see that stuff. And I look at it, and it says to me, you can't finish. You can't achieve what you set out to do, not to mention that you spent $500 billion on all this stuff. So let me ask you this. That's a small thing, but it's obviously a big thing. So my question is this. Can everyone benefit by starting with something like that? Because that's sort of external, right? Like my feelings are not going to be totally hurt if I never finish the sweaters. On the other hand, they might be totally hurt if I don't lose 300 pounds that I have to lose or whatever. So can we start with something that sort of touches us but not in an excruciatingly painful way and do something about that?
Knitting.
A good example. I have so many issues, so we'll just start with something that, knitting.
Knitting is a wonderful metaphor for life. It is a wonderful metaphor for life. And let's mention for a moment another concept. Let's introduce something. It's what my daughter calls, I have an 11-year-old, her self-esteem, which is obviously self-esteem. And there is nothing that will render us invisible quicker than not doing what we say we're going to do. If you want to kill your self-esteem, just make yourself a promise and break it, which is the problem with New Year's resolutions because 80% of the people who make them don't keep them.
Okay, so going back to my knitting example, all the 50,000 times I've told myself I'm going to donate it to charity, give it away, or finish a sweater, I have essentially sabotaged myself that many times.
You could say that, and we don't have the time, nor is this the venue to explore this. We can explore this off air, but it could be that you're a starter. It's like businesses. There are a lot of people who want to start a business, get it up and running, and then they want out. They're not maintenance people. So I don't know if you're a starter. And so maybe you should take on smaller knitting projects. Maybe it's not sweaters. Maybe it's socks or a hat because you get done quicker. I mean, again, that depends upon the person you are. But let's get back to the knitting again. I can tell you that and again, you'd have to find out what's your motivation. Why did you start to knit to begin with? All right? But if you discover, gosh, I'm going to finish this. I'm not going to finish 10 sweaters. I'm not going to use the $500 billion worth of yarn. I'm going to finish my favorite one, the one that when I look at makes me happy in my heart. And if you finish that, what will happen is you'll feel better about yourself. Wow, I did that. Whoa, I did that. I wonder what else I can do. It could be cleaning out a closet. It could be finally getting your nails polished. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. But I think the important thing is if you make yourself a promise, if you want your self-esteem to be at a level where you're going to have positive impact and where you're going to live invincibly, then you've got to start with small things and get them done.
Well, everyone out there, I'm just wondering if you have a knitting analogy in your life. And Nancy, that was great. I definitely wasn't asking you to go all the way down deep, but it occurred to me that if there's something, and everyone's got at least one thing, so you can start with something that's simple like that, and you said the next step is, if it bothers you like the knitting bothers me, then obviously you have to do something about it or it's going to keep bothering you, so you have to make a choice. So if you decide that not doing anything is not the choice that you want, then what is it that you're going to do? Like you said, you have options, right? I have options. I can give all of it away, or I can give some of it away, or I can figure out what to do to create productivity and results, right?
Correct.
Okay, so this is good. So with everyone that's listening, we can, if you're struggling in this area, you can start with something simple and not have to feel like you have to conquer the big, huge things right off the bat.
Right. If you're starting a business, for instance, and you have first-year revenue goals of, I don't know, it's 100,000 realistic, let's say 50,000 first year, right? Aim for the 50. do not, and I don't like to tell you what not to do because that's where your focus will go, but do not focus on your friend who is doing 300,000. Focus on your 50.
And don't focus on your ultimate 100,000, right? Because maybe that's...
No.
That
because most people don't go from... I'm sorry for talking over you.
No, I just wanted to... I just wanted to make sure that we don't sabotage ourselves by focusing on a goal that's for the next time around, as well as focusing on what's in the present and what we set for this year, for example.
Small, manageable pieces. Okay. So you want to find a place in your life and in your business for maximum invincibility where it's enough of a stretch where you feel stretched, but not so much of a stretch that it shuts you down. There's a fine line between courage and stupidity. That's another chapter in the book. There's a fine line between being courageous and going for your goal and coming up with some goal that there's no way in a million years you're ever going to reach.
All right.
And I don't believe in the word impossible, but I believe in setting ourselves up for success, not for failure, which is why you're listening to begin with, because you want tips on how to get that dream from just a potential in your mind to some performance or result in your life. Right?
There's a fine line between courage and stupidity.
Yes.
Quite profound. We're going to come back and pick your brain some more about what that means, because you want to be one and not the other. And I would imagine that all of us in some areas, as you mentioned earlier, if we're invisible in some areas, then we probably are not so courageous there. I don't know whether that means we're stupid in that area, but certainly there's something that needs to be addressed. So we're going to come back and talk about that fine line between courage and stupidity, and we're going to get some tips from Nancy about what we can do going into 2010 to make sure that we stay on the right side of that fine line. This is Indie Business Radio. I'm your host, Donna Maria. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning their new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're talking with Nancy D. Solomon, author of Impact, What Every Woman Needs to Know to Go From Invisible to Invincible. Nancy, before we took our break, you said there's a fine line between stupidity and courage. Tell us what you mean by that when it comes to small business ownership.
I would have to, in order to go give it the deserving energy it needs, I'd have to go into a whole conversation about life purpose. But let me make it as succinct as I can. I believe that all of us came here to get something done in our lifetime. And to the degree to which we are willing to be authentic, discover our life purpose, and go for our transforming our potential into something substantive that we'll leave behind is the degree to which we're courageous. So what that means is show up. It means show up as who you are. Find out what your job is and get it done. It means being willing to follow your own intuition and your own instincts in a business setting, even if you're surrounded by experts that tell you to do something else. Stupid is when, and I mean that tongue-in-cheek, I hope everybody knows that. I'd never call you stupid, nor would I feel that way. Stupid means you're trying to be someone else, that you're going into a business or setting goals that are not your own. And so let's take, for instance, suppose you want a business that generates, ultimately $250,000 in revenue. But everybody around you goes, oh, you're thinking too small, you should do $5 million. If your gut tells you 250 and that's your goal and that's what you aim for, that is courage. Mm-hmm. Stupidity would be like, I mustn't know what I'm talking about. I'll listen to everyone else. You go for the $2 million or whatever it is, and you fall flat on your face. Why? Because it wasn't your goal. And in business, and I could tell you stories of 10 very, very, very famous people that you would know who have said, the only time I got off track is when I didn't trust myself. That's when I made my biggest business faux pas, is when I listened to everybody tell me what I should be doing when everything in my gut said, don't do that. And that is courage. And that is probably the single or one of the top 2 ingredients for living an invincible life.
Nancy, can you give us an example or two of some good, succinct ones that you can think of with clients that you have worked with, obviously not including names or anything or identifying information, that have incorporated some of these tips that you're sharing into their lives and gotten some tangible results? And what have those results been?
I just got a call from somebody last Thursday about this very thing. We had coached together. She wanted to go, she works for a high-tech company, a software company, and she wanted to go from, let's say, position A to position B. Except she wanted to skip B, and she really wanted to go to C, but her company's policy is that you have to stay in every position for 18 months before you can be promoted. Well, we sat down, came up with a compelling case as to why she should skip levels, what results and what kind of impact she'd have in her company. And we just came up with a business case, what her organization's ROI would be, return on investment, if she skipped. We got her all prepared with the right mentors. We made sure she had the skill sets to do what she wanted to do, and she went for it. And wouldn't you know, lo and behold, her company allowed her to make the skip. She got a significant increase in salary, and she is now in position C. They made an exception, because there's always exceptions. In a small business, I'm going to use me as an example. All right, can I do that? And for those of you who have read the book, you'll know that in the afterward, I talk about this. I talked about writing my book for 5 years. The truth is, I really talked about writing it for 40 years. But I was afraid. What if I open my mouth and I have nothing to say? What if somebody else has already said this better than me? What if I commit my principles to paper and people think I'm dumb or I'm wasting their time, right? And I had to go through my own process as a small business owner, because you have to take time away from your business to write a book, right? And I committed to doing this, and I realized at the end of the game that the only thing that was standing between me and my book was me giving myself permission to have a voice. Mm-hmm. Do you hear that, everybody listening? Giving yourself permission to have a voice. I got to the point one day where I said, if the book never gets done, how will I feel? And then, the importance of a question, and then there was, if I'm the only one who ever reads this book, I need to do this. And when I got to that, when I stopped worrying about all those outer circles, the ripples, what they would care about, and what my rock said, right? That was the day I started writing. And I want to say one more thing about that. We talked about setting goals that are your own. One of the other things that hung me up is I thought I was writing a book. So every time I thought about a book, I was like, I can't write a book. And you know what? I was right. I'd never written a book before. So what I did is I said, I'm not writing a book. I'm writing a page today. And now, remember the whole power of now? Mm-hmm. Okay, now is another moment. I'm going to write another page today. And at the end of 400 or 500 pages, I had a book. And that's the way we need to look at our businesses. You may have a goal, whatever that goal is down the road, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever your benchmarks are. Start today with one little thing that will raise your self-esteem, that will show you that you are courageous. It'll make it easier for the next step tomorrow.
And so that is so simple yet so profound, because especially as women, we have so many other things to do. There's the dinner, there's the laundry, there's the kids, there's the husband, the aging parents, and the whole 9 yards. So this comes back sort of full circle to what you said at the beginning, right, Nancy, that we have to get out of the habit, if we are in such a habit, of putting ourselves last all the time.
And I would look at it as, absolutely, I would look at it as, instead of I actually have an essay in the book called Don't Take the Last Piece of Pie, right? In that, instead of not putting ourselves last, put yourself first. Not across the board. You can't. We have too many roles, as you just pointed out. But on something that's ultimately important, there's not a person on the planet who doesn't have 30 minutes a day for themselves. And I can tell you that what that will do for your self-esteem, for your opinion of yourself, will positively impact every other area of your life. You'll be a better mother. You'll be a better manager, a better boss, a better spouse, whatever, because you will have taken care of yourself. And you'll no longer feel that you're at the end of the line and that your needs don't deserve to get acknowledged.
What if someone's listening and they understand what you're saying conceptually and they can identify some areas in their lives where this could be helpful? Do you think it's helpful for people like that to kickstart with other people who may be, following the things that you're describing as opposed to doing it on their own?
I think sometimes that's very helpful. I mean, that's why people do group coaching classes. That's very, very helpful. And only you can make the distinction between, are you joining a group as another excuse to prolong the decision to take an action, or is it truly helpful? I just left or am about to leave a mastermind group because for the first 2 years it was very helpful, and now it just feels like blah, blah, blah to me. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful group for the time it lasted, but it's lost its juice for me.
Yeah.
So now I have to find something else that fills me up. And that's the same for all of us. You're not deserting your friends if you outgrow a group you're in. You're just saying, I'm ready for a new chapter. Mm-hmm. You're all on dessert, and I want to start with the appetizers again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. All of this, it just requires, it does require at least 30 minutes a day for you to sort of evaluate where you are and be able to take some positive steps. So tell me this, with your book, let's take a look at this book because it's extremely valuable, and I've had a chance to read a couple of the chapters. What would your suggestion be if someone were to purchase this book today, go to the website and purchase this book today? What chapter should they read first and why?
Oh, gosh. In the introduction, I actually wrote about this very subject. And what I did is I wrote the book in small, I call them essays, they're chapters. There's 39 of them. But they're only 3 pages, up to, I think the biggest is 9 pages. And I did that because we now work in small increments of time. We're so overwhelmed. Nobody reads a 25, 30-page chapter anymore. And how I wrote them was you can read the book from page 1 to the end of the book, or you can jump around. And I sort of have an unusual way of recommending this. What I would say is sit in front of the book. If you're an A to Z person, read the book front to cover. Cover to cover, rather. But you may just want to sit with the book in front of you, ask yourself, what do I need to know today? Like, what's my most pressing issue? And randomly open the book and see what's there. The chapter that I think is most critical is the one on permission. Permission 2.0. Because that's the place where I find for myself and the people I've worked with that most hangs us up. And when I talk about permission, I want to be very clear. This isn't the kind of permission from 30 years ago or 20 years ago where we said, honey, do you mind if I go buy a pair of shoes? Do you mind if I go out with my friends? This is the kind of permission it takes to step out on your own and see what you're made of. What it takes to say, to the group that you're in, I'm not leaving you behind, I'm just going for something. Mm-hmm. And women, because we are relational, we tend to hold ourselves back so the people in our group don't feel bad. Mm-hmm. Stop that now.
We don't feel like we hurt other people's feelings or cause someone else to stumble.
Yeah, I can't ask for that promotion. I can't go for that client because my friend who also has a graphic design company, she wants that client. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the competition's a whole different story, but I'm saying about giving yourself permission to see what you're made of.
You're not saying
to go for your goal.
You're not advocating, obviously, undercutting other people, but
Never.
What you are advocating is acting consistent with the goals you've set without abandoning your principles or something like that.
Yeah, because what if we've been taught as women that there's one life vest left and the boat's going down, we should give it to someone.
Right.
And your relationships are only as healthy as you are. Mm-hmm. So I say instead, be a role model. Mm-hmm. And if you have a goal, don't ever do anything just to hurt anybody. We're not advocating that at all. But I'm saying if you have a goal to write a book, don't not write the book because your friend's been wanting to write one and she hasn't gotten to it, so you don't want to make her feel bad. What you want to do is write it so she sees it can be done, and you're a role model for her, and she'll get it done as well. So permission is, to me, the ability to do the inner work, to go inside yourself, fully engage with yourself, become intimate with yourself, figure out what your goals are, and give yourself permission to go for it without regard for what other people are going to think, feel, or say about your actions. Because at the end of the day, it's your impact, not theirs.
And one of the powerful and yet also very succinct things that I see here in this book is we can think in terms of turning your what if into what is. Elaborate on that a little bit, if you would.
What if I finished those sweaters? What if I took those 10 sweaters and actually finished them? What if I donated those? What if I found some teenage club, a knitting club, and let them all finish the sweater so they could feel good about themselves without having had to spend, 3 months doing it? Mm-hmm. And then what's standing between you and what is? What are your thoughts? Well, and it's probably beliefs like, oh, I started it. My mother told me I should always finish everything I start. Or it could be, I spend so much money on that. How can I just rationalize throwing that money away?
Right. Or
whatever.
I know.
You like
when I'm 65 and I want it to be here. That sounds so hoarder-like. And for anyone, I'm as hoarding as I may be when it comes to the knitting, at least it's all like in boxes in the garage. It's not like all over my house. But I like what you said, because what it means is we can say, what if I do this? And we can actually list what the end result would be and look at that and say, gee, if I don't do this, that will never come to be. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing. That's not it's the consequences of not doing it become more clear, more crystallized when you think along those lines.
That's right.
Okay. So I don't know about anybody else, but I got to tell you, I am ready to tackle this knitting issue that I have, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Nancy said I have to, go beneath the surface and do some exploration, which I will. But, I got to tell you, this show has been so helpful to me because of that one thing, because I think that somewhere deep down in my psyche there is this knitting speed bump that I have that is because I think too much about it, Nancy. It comes up in my head. When I see other people knitting, I go, oh, God, I have all this knitting, and it's awful. The knitting store that I go to is closed, right? Not that I ever went there to do anything besides spend my money and leave. The knitting store closed, and I remember thinking, oh, it's so awful the knitting store closed. The economy, all the young people who will never learn how to knit because that store closed. And there's this knitting in my closet, and what if I had done more to help her business stay afloat? I mean, it just turned into this big, huge thing. And
the amount of energy you spent thinking about it was 10 times what it would have been if you just sat down and finished the sweater.
I know,
which is why we know it has nothing to do with knitting.
Right. Well, here's the other reason I haven't finished the one sweater I'm thinking about, which is the most beautiful thing in the whole world. I have to take a picture of it and send it to you, is because I won't be able to fit it anymore. I started it literally 18 years ago. And it's just, it's like, well, if I finish it now, I'm going to have to give it away. But there you go. There's a what if to what is analogy that I can think about. So this is really great. So I'm so thankful that you sort of let me go with the knitting thing, Nancy, because I sense that a lot of my listeners, like me, oftentimes need to start with something simple so that we can sort of empower ourselves to take the next step.
Yeah, and let me offer you something. Your knitting, which is somebody else's souffle, which is somebody else's laundry list, which is somebody else's, white paper they want to write, remember rocking your own pond. Whatever you discover that issue is that's standing between your what if and your what is, look everywhere else in your life because it's going to show up other places as well. That's the beauty of the accountability model of you're rocking your own pond. Knitting, it's in your business as well.
So when you find this one little thing, what you ultimately find when you deal with it is that you're solving probably more than that one little thing by handling that one little thing.
Unquestionably.
Okay. And so you won't discover that unless you do it. So if you can find one little thing to handle that's not that overwhelming, like my knitting, then that will reap far more rewards than, so our what is going to be bigger than we think anyway, no matter what. So there's no reason not to do it. So get busy.
Oh, I love your thinking. And if you'll notice, at the end of each of the chapters, I have a little section called Initiate Impact, because we have a tendency to talk about our problems and not resolve them. It's what Deborah Tannen calls trouble talk. We talk about the issue over and over and over ad nauseum. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that to these readers. I want to tell them, okay, here's the principle. Here's what you do with it. Mm-hmm. And if you look through those, Donna Maria, you'll see that they're very small steps, really small questions to ask yourself to open up the door, because you don't need to know the answer. You need to know the right question.
Good.
The question always is bigger than the answer you receive. Getting the question's the hard part. Getting the answer flows easily from that.
I love that. That's a great way to end what we're talking about. The question is always bigger than the answer, but once you get the question into your mind, there's no question, but that you can move forward and take steps to resolve it. I love that thought. It's the perfect way to end my last show of 2009. I've had dozens and dozens of shows this year. I invite you to listen to all of them at indiebusinessradio.com. They go all the way back to 2005, actually, a show a week just about, all for you, all free, indie, business, small business, all the time. Nancy, tell us where we can go online to connect with you and learn more about what you do.
I would love to share. I have tons of wonderful things on my site. It's NancyDSolomon.com, Nancy, D like David, SOLOMON.com. And I have free articles and audio, and my book is up there, and they can just go and click on my book and buy it at their favorite bookseller. If you prefer, they can contact me in my office, and I can autograph and send it to them. So I would love to see you. I would love to see you on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Plaxo. And if you have a burning question, shoot me an email. You'll find my information on my site. I'd love to connect with you.
Excellent.
And I hope this had positive impact today.
Oh, I feel very powerfully empowered by it, and I'm sure that my guests do as well. Let me know what you think, guys. You can tweet it. You can, of course, go to Nancy's website. She has a blog. You can share with her there. And, of course, I'll be posting the audio and a summary of the show at my blog at indiebusinessblog.com, where you'll be able to download the show or stream it. And you can also go to iTunes and get it. So trying to meet you wherever you are in your busy life. This is my last show of the year. My next show will be January 4th, 2010. Who can believe it? The new year is upon us. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, happy holiday season, Happy New Year. Enjoy your family, and, I think I'm going to be posting some pictures of what I decide to do with this knitting, so I can follow up and go from invisible to invincible where this crazy knitting is concerned. Nancy, thank you so much. We'll see you next year, everyone. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.